Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and apparently
I was doing a little reading this morning. It's Connor Weigman, if you forgot. He was on the cover with Quinn Ewers.
Oh, man. Well, tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We also have a special guest today. Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everybody about
I'll let Bobby tell everybody. Bobby watched them kick.
Yeah, I actually was old enough to watch him kick. Raul Alegre, the former kicker of the University of Texas in the early 80s, is going to be joining the show, talking a little bit about him. He has been the Monday Night Football broadcaster for Latin America for 20 plus years. Now he owns his own business, it's Spanish language channel. But as we continue talking to former players across the spectrum at the University of Texas, young and old, to check in, see what they're up to now, Jerry reached out to Raul, and he is going to join us around 8:30, 8:45 this morning. Happy to do that and get some people excited again. We may have to ask him to do a impersonation of his broadcast partner that does the goal, by the way. But very good stuff. Happy to see Raul, who was one of my first memories of a Texas kicker after Russell Erxleben, who was a beast, so to speak, on the football.
He's got a great story, too, which we'll get into with him on how he ended up at the University of Texas, because it definitely wasn't as a recruited kicker out of high school. So he's got a great story. Obviously, a avid Texas Longhorns fan. The crazy thing is he actually reached out to me. He knows Rod Babers, and he reached out to me on Twitter, and we just started having a conversation. I said, come on the show and let's talk about it. And he's very excited to do it, and very excited to have him.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be fun.
Well, another thing that people are excited about, been a hot topic of conversation for about the past week or so, is the running back coach search. What is the latest there, fellas?
As of right now, we're still waiting to see what Steve Sarkisian decides to do. We broke the name yesterday. Norval McKenzie out of Georgia Tech is a name of interest for the Longhorns. You can see here he graduated from Vanderbilt, went to he coached in Hiram High School in Georgia, graduated from Vanderbilt, was at Vanderbilt for a little bit, and recruited Cedric Alexander, their running back, that is from Austin LBJ. He also recruits the state of Georgia, particularly Atlanta, for Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, as well as parts of Florida, Jerry. Norval McKenzie is a definite name to know. E.J. Bartell is another name that we believe is somewhat under consideration, at least. He is the running backs coach at Nebraska. He was with Kyle Flood briefly in 2014, 2015 as the football operations and recruiting director at Rutgers. And so there are a couple of different guys here. We don't know if these are the only guys in play, by the way. That's one thing that Jerry and I are trying to make sure that everybody understands. We're not saying these are the only ones, but we know these two are at least getting some consideration. There have been other names that people have put out there, like Keenan Hall at Baylor, Rashad Samples up at Oregon, etc. We don't think those are happening at this moment, so we'll keep in contact. This is by the way, this is a decision that could drop any minute, or it could be into the weekend. Steve Sarkisian's on his own timeline here.
There's a lot of guys that wanted in on this job. That's the important thing to know. Around the country.
I took a call from an agent yesterday, Jerry, and this is a great point to make. How do I get in on this job? How do I get my client in on this job?
Yeah. Texas
is and I'm like, call Steve Sarkisian. What else are you supposed to do? I mean, I don't know what to do. The reason that it's so interesting right now to people is, look, Texas is considered on the rise. They pay well. They participate in NIL, so you could be a competitive recruiter, right?
You get to sign really highly rated backs.
Yep, you'll sign really highly rated backs that'll raise your own coaching profile. The thing that I stick to, though, about this, and I mentioned it last night with Jeff Howe, I just don't think Sark's in it for the guys that are true job hoppers. Like, he doesn't want the next big thing and guy gone in a year. He's looking for somebody that has a little staying power that he can help develop an offense with, work side by side, rely on. And so I think that Sark, that's why Mark Orfe, the cornerback coach that we believe is going to be the cornerback coach of Texas, to replace Blake Gideon, who, by the way, was a safety coach, he's indicative, in my opinion, of the type of hire Sark likes to make. Not necessarily on the major radar, doesn't have all these skins on the wall where they say he's the best recruiter. He's looking for guys that can coach. He'll help recruit, and he doesn't think any of them are bad recruiters, or else I don't think they wouldn't fit in with his culture. But my point being, he's not looking for job hoppers that are just trying to go get the next offensive coordinator job or defensive coordinator job. He's looking for guys that want to come help him build a team. And that means that these guys that are out there trying to get jobs may not be what he's really looking for. He's looking for somebody that he can build around and build with. So good stuff.
What's interesting to me is when we initially started talking about the replacement for Tashard Choice, one of the things I wondered was how important would the Georgia-Florida Southeast recruiting tie be with the loss of Choice, who got like some people have kind of tried to define Choice as a running back, a recruiter of running backs. That's not what he was. He got Texas into Florida. He was the guy on the staff that had the deepest ties in Orlando in the Southwest corridor of Florida, him and Banks. He helped Texas get into Florida. He was part of the Peyton Kirkland recruitment and prior to Cedric Baxter, and then on and on. And then in the Atlanta area, when Kenny Baker came in, he wasn't doing it alone. That gave him some help in the Atlanta area. But for a year, it was pretty much him. So I wonder how big that's going to be. So if I'm playing the if game, if Norval McKenzie ended up being the pick, and I'm not saying he is, if he was though, he would be a perfect recruiting fit at Texas because he recruits the Atlanta area. He's from the Atlanta area. He was a high school standout there that went to Vanderbilt, came back, started his career at Hiram High School in the Atlanta area, then got in the college ranks. He recruits Broward County. He recruits the Derek Coopers of the world, St. Thomas Aquinas, all these schools in Broward County, dips in the data a little bit. He recruits, his top running back recruit 2 years ago was out of the Tampa area in the 24 class, Anthony Carey. I went by Sandalwood, that school, not Sandalwood, by Carrollwood Day School, because Texas was recruiting the edge Williams that ended up at A&M and had a number of other guys. He's recruited all the same areas. Plus, he's a Broward County guy too for Georgia Tech. So he's Atlanta area. He's Georgia. He also, if you look at his history, three of the best players on that Vanderbilt team, Cedric Alexander, obviously out of LBJ, but Langston Patterson and London Humphreys, who since transferred to Georgia, the receiver, Nashville area guys. He recruited the Vanderbilt. So he recruits Nashville area. He recruits Atlanta area, South Georgia, and into Florida, different areas of Florida. So from a recruiting perspective, he'd be a tremendous fit for what Texas is doing and trying to do on the recruiting front. Now they're in the SEC. Does that mean he's going to be the guy? I'm not saying that. What I am saying is from a recruiting fit, if he ended up being the guy, I'd pretty much say, yeah, I'd tip my cap and say that was a really good hire from a recruiting standpoint.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Speaking of coaches, we have a super chat here from Jack that I wanted to read. Thank you, Jack, as always. He says, in his opinion, Coach Beckton is as important to our program as any of our coordinators or position coaches.
Yeah, I think in this day, good point, Jack. In this day and age, you can't get that hire wrong. And for those unaware, Tory Beckton, the strength and conditioning coordinator, coach for the University of Texas, I completely agree that, look, and I don't want to bag on anybody that's done it before, but you have to get across to a large number of people, as many as, like, I'll give you an example. The offensive coordinator is really worried about the offense. The defensive coordinator is really about worried about the defense. Special teams is special teams. Or if you're a position coach, you're really just worried about your 10 wide receivers, right? What are you worried about if you're a strength and conditioning guy? Every single one of them. And all of them have different needs and expectations. So I'll be blunt. I think that is huge to get him to extend, and not surprising that he had NFL opportunities, given that he's got some NFL background and pedigree to him. But he will not be the only one. He hasn't been the only one who has turned down NFL jobs this year. Whether it's Kyle Flood, Kenny Baker, Chris Jackson. I mean, there's been a number of them that have decided at this point. Now, some of them may still turn around and look elsewhere because the hiring situation is not over. We found that out with the hiring cycle is not over. We found that out with Tashard Choice. But so far, Texas has survived this onslaught with just 2 departures, Tashard Choice and Blake Gideon, both of whom left for ostensibly better situations. One as a defense coordinator, one going on to the NFL. So Sark's done a good job of retaining and wanting to retain people, by the way. Like some people you just want to see leave. It's not the case with Torrey Becton. And I think that you're right, Jack. The strength and conditioning program is so vitally important because it is the heartbeat of the program in some respects, because it's when they all get together, not when they are literally just player by player or position by position.
There's 2 things. In high school, it's a lot of times it's the trainer, and I mean the athletic trainer.
Yep.
In college, is the strength and conditioning coach. Those guys see the players more than the staffs do.
They're the glue a little bit.
And it's always interesting. Like when I would go to high schools, and it's hard. I'm not asking about injuries, right? But when I go to high schools and I see the trainer of a team and where a really good player is, I oftentimes will go ask him about the kid. What do you think about him as a kid? How hard do you see him work? Because the coaches are always going to be very complimentary of their players, right? But a trainer sees the kid when the coaches don't. I always like to ask him, how is he? How is he when the coaches aren't around? So those guys are so important at the college level as strength and conditioning coach. Because look, the Texas staff was gone the last 10 days out of the office. Who was there? Becton and his staff were there. They see these guys on a daily basis when the coaching staff does not. So they're vitally important to a program. Torrey Becton is an integral part of being the culture warrior, the leader of the culture warriors for Steve Sarkisian at Texas. No doubt about it. By the way, my voice is still messed up. Sorry, people. Somebody, Ryan from Shiner. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. So not as strong. Clearly, I get my ass whipped. But K Stu said, "Yo, Jerry in the chat. Hey, we're waiting on Chris Stewart's official visit date to Texas. If you got that, just drop it on in."
There you go. Good stuff. Well, speaking of official visits and the like, Jerry, what's the latest on recruiting?
Yeah, so there's a K Stu saying 2 Stewart brothers now, Carter, DB, his out of Shadow Creek, Oklahoma offer. I saw that. I sound like a WNBA player. Thank you. I love this. But latest on recruiting is Caden Dixon Wyatt. His official visit date, the receiver out of Mater Dei, is going to be June 13th through 15th. I think we have some huddle clips of him. That was the official visit that we confirmed for yesterday. Obviously, Chris Stewart is the wide receiver commitment in this class right now, and I think that number will go to 3 or 4. But Caden Dixon White is a guy that Texas has been high on a while. They offered him they've been on him almost a year now. Plays on that very talented team. There you see Cody Green at right tackle. You see Mark Bowman, the tight end, running down the field. You have Caden Dixon Wyatt here. Obviously, you have the 5-star receiver Chris Henry as well on this highlight video. But Caden Dixon Wyatt, very similar. He's different, but he's in the mold of the guys Texas signed in the last class, Bobby. 50-50 ball winner. Really good player, back shoulder guy. A guy that can go up and get the ball against taller corners, longer limb corners in the SEC. Kind of fits what Texas recruited in this last class. I think that's Matt Leinert's son throwing in the football, by the way. He's committed to SMU. He's a righty, not a lefty. but he kind of fits what Texas recruited in that last cycle as far as the taller, longer limb wide receivers to go win against the taller, longer limb corners in the SEC.
Unbelievable how much talent they have on this team. So you're saying the quarterback's going to SMU.
Yeah.
The right tackle is one of the best in the country that's committed to Oregon that Texas is currently recruiting. They've got one receiver already committed to Ohio State and Chris Henry Jr. And then they have Caden Dixon-Wyatt here, who's got his choice of programs around the country as well.
Yeah.
Good luck playing them on Friday night.
They were ranked number 1 in the country for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, look, good luck. And they're all going to be seniors this year. If they lose a game, that coach is going to – I mean, what do you say?
And by the way, the stud freshman running back from Georgia, Nate Frazier, was on this team with Jordan Davison 2 years ago, who signed with Oregon, the running back that Texas recruited for a long time. This is the most talented starting 11 on offense in America. I mean, all 5 of their offensive linemen are D1, 4 Power 4 guys, highly recruited guys. Defensively, they have Sean Scott. They have a number of guys on defense. This is the power program on the West Coast. Yeah, you and everybody else, Blake Jester, hope we flip Chris Henry, everybody else too. I don't think it's happening.
All right. Well, as we wait for our special guest, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everybody about Mando if you're ready. You're muted, though.
Jerry's muted.
Not me for once. That's a win in my book. Still muted. Jerry, you're muted.
Jerry, you are muted.
Who muted me? I'm doing my Mando read in I guess a female wrestler voice, so this should be fun today. You know when you have a great product, when your son sees it and takes it from you before you get a chance to use it. That's Mando. That's what my kid did when he saw the Mando. Whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body. This is important. The pits, the balls, the thigh folds, if you got them, belly buttons, butt cracks. We all have those, I think. And feet, created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Who doesn't want that? Mando deodorant product options are solid deodorant stick formulated and powered by mandelic acid to stop odor before it starts. The spray deodorant, aluminum free, and ideal for those hard to reach places. Oh boy, Kim Mulkey, coach got after you. All right, all products baking soda free and paraben free. Choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clotherwoods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. This is the most important part of the read. Everybody pay attention. Clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, did you know the average man's Grundle odor level was 5 out of 10? If you live in Oklahoma, you're a 10 out of 10. With Mando, or an Oklahoma fan, with Mando, the average Grundle odor level is a 0 out of 10. Want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now? You can find them in Walmart, Target, or other retailers across the country for the very best deals. Go to shopmando.com. Mando's starter pack is perfect for our new customers. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 5% off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off with the starter pack using code ONTexas at shopmando.com. And I'll end my read with this. If you're not taking care of your Grundle, you ain't taking care of anything. Bottom line.
Bottom line.
I've got to ask. I just question here. I mean,
Yes.
was anybody before these reads? Was anybody aware of anything called a Grundle?
Yes, I was.
Were you really? You've heard of
His
Grundle?
neighbor's the taint.
I've never
Oh,
heard of
you asked,
thing as a
Ryan.
Grundle.
You
I've
asked,
never, I've never heard of such a thing as a Grundle. But it is what it is. Hey, some other news and notes from yesterday, Texas, and from the weekend, really. Texas basketball back at it Saturday, Jerry. I believe they head to South Carolina. The women's team doesn't get going until Monday, so they've got a rare 3-game stretch in 6 days, I think, next week. But Jerry, the win over the win over Kentucky over the weekend puts Texas now back in the NCAA tournament. We're gonna look. I think I'm getting a little tired of. Yeah, it's like I'm riding a roller coaster, right? I'm getting a little tired of going back and forth with this. But I'll let you take it away and tell people at least where we're at this point with the basketball team and their NCAA hopes.
Yeah, so the men, I right now, whether you use bracket matrix, ESPN bracketology, here's USA Today, everybody's got Texas as a 10 seed right now. And look, I want to say this discussion about the team and Rodney Terry, those, the future Rodney Terry, I think those are two different discussions. For the team, we're talking about the team. The win over Kentucky was massive. It was a quad 1 win. I know they had a couple of guards hurt, but Kalum was hurt for Texas. But if Texas had lost that and they had 4 losses in a row headed into the bye week before South Carolina, I think people would have had them on the outside looking in. Right now, they're a 10 seed in need of 3 wins out of the last 5 games to get in the tournament. 8-10, you're safely in the tournament. I think as a 10 seed, you'll probably stay on the 10 seed. You may get pushed to an 11 seed play-in game, but every game left is quad 2 or quad 1. At South Carolina, if you look at Texas' schedule, I just put up a story on TexasFootball.com about the men's and women's, their seeding and kind of where things are at right now in my estimation. But for the men, the game you can't lose at South Carolina. They got to win at South Carolina. South Carolina is not – they're 0 for – after being in the tournament last year, they're 0 for an SEC. But they played at home to some 1-possession games, 2-possession games of late. Texas has to – if they take a loss in that game, then that's one that can hurt you if you're on the bubble at the end of the day. Even if you go 8-10, people might look at that loss a real negative way. If they get that game, what has to happen, they need to beat South Carolina. Then you have at Arkansas. You have Georgia at home, at Mississippi State, and Oklahoma home. If you win South Carolina and you win your 2 home games, which they're favored in, then Texas would be in at 8-10, no matter what happens in the SEC tournament. But they'd be a 10 seed or the 11 seed playing. If Texas happens to get the 9-9, then that's a different story for them. They may be a 9 seed, they may hang on the 10 seed line, but they'd be right there. They'd be comfortably in. So right now, Texas is I think it's in the tournament. It looks like 12 SEC teams right now is what most people have in the tournament. That means the only 4 not in: South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, and I forget the 4th. But that'd be 4 teams not in. But if 12 teams get in the tournament, Texas has to go 8-10 to be one of those. So we'll see what happens. On the women's side, comfortably a 1 seed. Somebody's going to have to explain to me how they're number 3 in NCAA.net, because they have the most quad 1 wins. They have the most combined quad 1 and 2 wins. Somebody will have to explain it to me, but they're comfortably a 1 seed. And why I think that's important for the women is with UConn's blowout win over South Carolina. Despite like some of the bracketology from the weekend having UConn as a 2 seed in Texas's bracket, I think we're headed to Notre Dame and UConn as 1 seeds and Texas as a 1 seed. Those are, to me, the 2 toughest matchups for Texas in the women's side. Teams that can make 3-pointers in bunches and can get to 8, 9 3 makes, where you make average 2 or 3. Texas averages 3.2 on the year. If you get in a game where it's a 5, 6 3-point difference, then that puts a lot of pressure on you to get to the free throw line to make up the points the way Texas does. Those are the 2 teams you want. If I'm Texas, if I'm a Texas women's fan and I'm looking at a bracket, I want Notre Dame and UConn to be 1 seeds and me as a 1 seed. And in those 2 toughest matchups, I wouldn't play until the Final Four national championship game. That's ideal. Those are the 2 teams that, when I look at it, can press Texas offensively in a different way than some other teams can. Now, there could be an NC State team that gets really hot like they did with their guards last year. I'm not saying it can't happen, but those are the 2 teams. But Texas is from the women's side is a very rare team in today's day and age of basketball. They've hit 92 threes. They are 345th out of 353 Division I women's teams in three-pointers made per game. What they're doing is uncommon. And Vic called his team uncommon. I call it uncommon for a different reason. He's maximized this team in a way that not many teams are maximized in college basketball anymore, men's or women's side. So I think it's very matchup dependent for the women, but they're on the 1 seed side, right where you want to be. And perfect scenario would be Notre Dame, UConn being the ones, and then let everybody fight it out when it matters in the Final Four if you get there. But from the men's side, if they beat South Carolina and win 2 more, they're in the tournament probably as a 10 seed. That's where things are at.
Hey, I forgot early on I told you I was talking to that agent earlier or yesterday that had a couple of coaches that wanted in on the job at Texas. He also had a little bit other news for me that y'all can mark a date down. Now, the Texas Pro Day is when all the players from Texas will be there. NFL draft people will be there. Some head coaches of the NFL. It'll take place inside the bubble there on the University of Texas campus. That date has been set for March 26th. So March 26th will be the Texas Pro Day, according to this agent who has a couple of Texas players that are going to be part of the process. So March 26th, mark your dates. I don't think that's a public date quite yet, but given that he's got a couple players that got to be in attendance there, he's already making his scheduled trip to Austin. So that'll be interesting. It usually means that Texas schedules around that for spring practice. Jerry, we are still waiting to hear from Steve Sarkisian exactly what he's going to do for spring ball. But as every day goes by, it looks more and more unlikely that Texas will actually have a true spring game at the very least, and spring practice could look very different than what it has in years past as well. We're going to be continuing monitoring that, but for now, make sure you mark down March 26th for the Texas Pro Day. It is unlikely to change because everybody sets up theirs at different times so that GMs and head coaches can go to different ones, and Texas has scheduled that day tentatively at least for March 26th.
That'll be a huge day, obviously.
At least 17 guys working out.
That'll be a huge day for Quinn, by the way. And we'll be talking about that a lot leading up. I think it's time for our special guest, which I'm excited.
It is. I'm going to let you introduce, and
I'll let you introduce him because my voice could go at any time.
Okay, let's bring in Raul Alegre, former kicker, University of Texas, a broadcaster now by trade for ESPN Latin America. At least he has been. How long did you do ESPN Monday Night Football, Raul? And congratulations, and thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I was with ESPN for 18 years.
Wow.
Monday Night Football was actually 14. We first had Sunday Night Football in 2000. I started doing games in 2003, 4 and 5. And then in 2006, ESPN actually got the rights to do Monday Night Football. So we switched to Monday Night Football after that. So I was there until 2018. I went back to Sunday Night Football in 19, and then I've been on my own since 2020.
Where are you living? Give us an update on where you're living, what you're doing these days. I mean, tell us what's going on. We always ask that of former players, what's going on in their lives.
I live in Austin, and after ESPN, there was a transition period. In 2021, I started my own sports digital platform. I do all my work in Spanish, as you probably knew. And I created that website. It's called Especialistas del Deporte, along with some former colleagues of mine from ESPN. We pretty much covered the main sports. I do most of the football programs. We have 4 football programs during football season. We keep one during the off season, which is called Extra Point. Guess why? And Punto Extra in Spanish, and it broadcasts on Wednesdays. We also have a football podcast that comes out on Thursdays, and we do, MLS actually. We do Liga Mexicana, the soccer league, sports, soccer leagues, tennis, and quite a few other sports as well.
Not many people know this, but you're also as well as being a former UT kicker, you're also a Super Bowl champion, huh? Is that correct?
Yes. I was a member of two Super Bowl winning teams with the New York Giants, 1986. I actually got to play in that game, Super Bowl 21 and Super Bowl 25. I started with the team. I had played the first few games of the season, had an injury, but they still gave me a ring. So I did not reject that ring, by the way.
This wasn't the first question I was going to ask you, but now I am. Do you remember little Chris Sims running around the locker room with Phil back in those days?
Oh, yes, of course I do. Every Saturday, all the players used to bring their kids to practice, and they would get a good kick out of getting to the dirty clothes hampers, and we would just running around, and it would be like a roller coaster ride for them. But yeah, I got in touch with Chris when he got to Austin, and at first he was wearing number 2 before he changed his number, and I teased him that it was because of me. Obviously, it was not. It was because one. His father used to wear 11, so 1 and 1 is 2. That's why he wore number 2. But I used to tease him that is because he admired me, and he always rejected that, vehemently. But yeah, I got in touch with Chris when he was here.
So, Rob,
go ahead, Jerry.
I wanted to ask you, for the fans that don't know, talk about your path to football and eventually to the University of Texas before the NFL.
Well, I never watched football growing up in Mexico. I was a soccer player, and football really didn't interest me at all. I didn't even watch it on TV, even though Mexico football is very popular in Mexico. I became an exchange student in 1977. I went to the state of Washington, Shelton, Washington, and they didn't have soccer back then. Right now, there's soccer everywhere in the United States, but back then it was not popular at all. So the closest thing was to kick a football. So I tried it. I did well in the tryout, and they asked me to be on the team. I played. I don't know, but we had 9 games. We went 5-4. Our team wasn't very good. I thought I was going back to Mexico, but my coach filmed me just before I went back to Mexico in the month of May, and he distributed that. I didn't know that at the time, but he distributed that film amongst schools that recruited Shelton High, which was a very, very important football program in the state of Washington. They won several state championships. And the University of Montana contacted me and offered me a scholarship. Well, at first it was a half scholarship, but my foster mom, may she rest in peace now, negotiated a full ride. So I went to Montana for 2 years. And how I got to Texas is a funny story, because it was between in the summer of 79, after my freshman year. There was a football clinic in my hometown of Torreon, Mexico, and the people giving the clinic were Leon Fuller, Ron Meyer, Bill Yeoman, and the Texas Tech coach at the time. His name escapes me at the time. Yes. So I interpreted the clinic, and then I got to talk to those guys in between breaks, and they were asking me how I knew football. I got from Torreon, and I told them that I was going to the University of Montana, and then Coach Fuller told me, well, we have one of the top programs. He asked me what I wanted to study. And I said, I want to study civil engineering, but Montana does not have a school of engineering. It's a liberal arts school. So I am going to transfer probably back to Mexico after 2 years. And he says, no, don't do that. We have a great engineering school at Texas. Ron Meyer also raised his hand, and he said, we got a good engineering school at SMU as well. So I actually got to be really good friends with both of them. I researched both universities, and Texas had one of the top structural engineering programs. It was, a 10-hour drive from my home. So I contacted Coach Fuller at the Sun Bowl at the time they were playing the University of Washington. So I drove from Torreon to El Paso, and I got in touch with Coach. He told me the hotel where they were staying. So I went up to his room. He said, come with me. So he brought me to the Texas coaches meeting just before the night, the night before that Sun Bowl against Washington. And I met Coach Akers there, and the rest of the staff. I think Coach Larry was there, and obviously Coach Fuller, Mike Williams, many of those guys. So the University of Montana knew that I was going to stay there for only 2 years. They actually helped me with the transfer process, because at the time it wasn't as easy as it is today with the transfer portal. But so they had to release me. And of course, I had to sit out a year, which was 1980. So I transferred from Montana to Texas. And of course, in 1981, when I first played, I had the 3 field goals that beat SMU 9-9 the game. And, he said, you should have come here. Then he went to the NFL.
He should have offered you a Trans Am like all the other guys got.
He didn't offer. He didn't sweeten the pot, like they said. But in the NFL, my rookie year, my first game was against the Patriots. He was the coach of the Patriots at the time. And I tied the game to send it into overtime. I was with the then Baltimore Colts. And then we won in overtime. And then the second game back in Baltimore, I kicked the 52-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. It wasn't at end of the game. It wasn't at the end of the game, but it ended up being the difference, 52 yards. It was actually from the infield. And then after the game, he said that I was his nightmare. And then he moved to Austin, as you always know. I was the president of the NFL alumni for 18 years here. With John Haynes, he and I both run the chapter for that period of time. And he used to play in our golf tournament every time. And then, of course, he passed away actually playing golf. But I got to be really good friends with Coach Meyer and, of course, Coach Fuller. Coach Fuller was kind of like an uncle to me while I was at Texas. Of course, he left to go to the Denver Broncos after my first year. And then I got to be really good friends with Coach Mike Williams as well. So, and then Coach Larry he gave me my first shot with the Cowboys, because after Texas, I wasn't drafted. I was back with the USFL. The USFL didn't draft me, neither the NFL, but the Cowboys offered me a free agent deal. I went there. They had Septien as their kicker, and but Coach Larry sort of finagled a chance for me to alternate kicks with Septien the first game of the season against the Dolphins, and he kicked a 51-yarder, then I kicked a 52-yarder, and then that allowed me to get traded to the Baltimore Colts. That's a long story now. but that's how I got to Texas from Torreon, Mexico. It was that clinic that I interpreted, and Coach Yeoman, really nice guy. They were all really, really nice to me, and I had a really, really great time visiting with them during breaks.
That's awesome. Those are like names of my youth. Bill Yeoman, Ron Meyer, Jim Wacker, Leon Fuller. You mentioned Alan Lowry. He was the architect of the Music City Miracle.
Yes.
The throwback pass that Tennessee beat.
Well, he stole it from SMU. As you may recall. Yeah, he stole it from, SMU ran it, I think it was 1981, and they were losing the
Texas
game.
Tech, right? It was against Texas Tech.
So they did the backwards pass during the kickoff return. And we, of course, at the time, we ended up going to the Cotton Bowl, but SMU was on probation. And we obviously wanted SMU to lose, but we ended up with a pretty good team in '81. It was 10-1-1. We beat Bear Bryant in the Cotton Bowl with Robert Brewer's 30-yard draw, as you probably recall. And but yeah, it was. And at the time, Coach Larry was the defensive backs coach at Texas.
Yes, yeah, he was. He also he was a quarterback at Texas in the 70s.
Yes,
then they came in and tremendous. Yeah, I remember that Alabama game because I was I don't know 10, 11, 12, whatever it was, and it was a parting of the Red Sea.
yes.
Like Robert Brewer dropped back, and then all the Alabama players
He
scattered.
called the timeout. He called the timeout. I mean, Robert was my roommate. He actually lived in this house for about 2 years before he got married, and then also I got married as well. But I remember that I didn't know if I was going to kick a field goal, and Robert calls a timeout, goes back to Coach Akers. He saw something, and he told me the story. He said, so if they go back to the same front, we're going to, I mean, Coach said, just run the draw. And Mike Babb, the center, just can't remember the name of the nose tackle from Alabama, but Mike Babb just took him out of the way, and he was, I mean, he could have walked. I mean, he strolled basically into the end zone, and we got the momentum after that. Terry Orr scored another touchdown, and of course we got a safety, and it was kind of close at the end, 14-12, but we ended up winning.
I love it, Raul. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Sure.
I want to say thank you. I also texted with a friend of yours this morning. Les Koenig says hello.
Oh, Les, did he tell you the story that I fired him as a holder?
That was awesome.
I want to hear this though. Les Koenig was fired as a holder for you.
Yeah, he was the receiver. He was like the emergency quarterback. So they had him as the holder, and he was not very good. And then we got this freshman Rob Morshell, and he was really good as a holder. So I went to Coach Akers and says, Coach, I don't know how to do this, but Rob is a much better holder than Les, and Les is kind of like a big brother to me. So. But Rob is much better as a holder. He said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." So Rob became the holder from in 1981.
That's hilarious.
I've got something to use for Les next time I talk to him now. That's awesome.
Yeah, he knows the story. He knows that I fired him. He will never let me forget it.
Hey, I want to ask you. That's hilarious. I want to ask you something because I know we want to get your thoughts on Texas. Obviously, Texas-Ohio State game. Your thoughts on Texas now. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask you. You made one of the bigger kicks in Jets history, I believe, to send the Jets to the playoffs. Am I correct in that?
Sure. Yes.
From a kicker's perspective, because you have a different type of pressure. It's almost like being a pro golfer, right? I mean, you come in, you got to hit the drive on 18 in the fairway. To then go make a par birdie to win a tournament. You have a different pressure on you. Yes. What is it like? What did you do in that moment? Because we're gonna ask you about Bird Auburn in a second. But what did you do in that moment? Compartmentalize mentally, and then what is it like when you made that kick? What are your memories of that to send a team to the playoffs?
Well, one of the things that have been a big proponent of with kickers, and I have a lot of them that approach me. Actually, the new Arizona State kicker is from Mexico. He just transferred from Eastern Michigan to ASU, and he wanted to get in touch with me. And obviously, I was glad that he was not with ASU when we played him in the Peach Bowl. But yeah. What I told him is, is the mental aspect of kicking. And one of the things that I really stress is that you need to have a routine that you do for every kick, regardless whether it's an extra point or a field goal. And you do that every time, and that relaxes you, and that makes every kick more or less feel the same. Now, when you get out of that routine, it could be problematic. So when I saw Sark put his hands on Auburn before that kick against ASU, I thought, man, this is not good. I know that Mac did it with Dustin McNoom before the Michigan game, but it's just not a good thing to get a kicker out of his routine prior to a really, really big kick. So in order to manage the pressure, going back to that Jets game, I had a pretty much a preset routine. That was a kind of difficult game because I was let go by the Giants, 3 weeks before that. Actually, it was on Thanksgiving Day of 1991, and that game was in I think December 22nd of 1991. But I got to New York because Pat Leahy, the kicker, got hurt. His back went out, and so I basically flew to New York that Tuesday, and temperature was in the minus 30s in New York. So they didn't have a bubble at the time, so we couldn't practice outside. So my first time with the center and the holder was during warm-ups at that game, so it was kind of difficult. But I had that routine for many years. That was my 9th year in the NFL, so I more or less follow the same things that I did before. I didn't start well that game. I missed my first field goal, but I made the rest. And then when it got to that point, I was actually pretty relaxed, pretty calm. And I first tied the game. We went into overtime. It was a 44-yard field goal. And then we got the ball, and we dropped the ball, and we kicked a 30-yard field goal to make the playoffs. We actually played the Oilers the week after that when they had, the running shooter Warren Moon and Hayward Jeffries and all those guys. But yeah, it is that process. You mentioned golfers, and the mental aspect is huge. It makes all the difference in the world. I mean, since you mentioned golf, you may recall Ian Baker Finch or David Duval, guys that were like on top of the world, and all of a sudden they lost it, and it's up here. And as a kicker, you can lose it real fast, but you can get back to it if you have a routine and you have a way of doing things.
So I got to follow up with that real quick, Bobby. So we saw Bert Auburn, who had been really good the year prior, struggle from the right hash this year.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see something in his technique, or do you think it got to be, without knowing, do you think it got to be mental? And what's that recovery like from him competing for a job now this spring?
It's a little bit of both. I think that Bert could improve on his technique. I mean, if you see his kicks are not real high and they don't have a very good rotation, but he's accurate. Obviously, he's made more field goals than anybody else in Texas history. So he has talent, but that technique can be certainly improved. I don't know if he got in touch with a guy like Steve Hoffman. He used to be the kicking coach for the Cowboys. I think he's the best. He's semi-retired now. But then there's also, once you start missing, and it's kind of snowballs. And I think that was part of what happened with him. Now he's going to be in a competition. He decided to come back, which I thought it was a good decision. But he will have a competition, and we'll see how that happens, how that transpires. Mm-hmm.
All right, I've got to ask you this, because last question for you. I know. Thank you. You've been so gracious with your time. We appreciate it. Question for you. All these kickers, all of a sudden, the NFL, 50 yards is 55-yarder is the new 45-yarder, right? I mean, I just saw your career long with 55 yards. Back then, that was like a hell of a kick. Now everybody's toying with 58, 59-yarders like nobody's business. Has it just been typical better athletes now, better training? What's been the key to increase distance in the NFL for kickers?
Well, we could kick it that far back then. It's just that coaches were a lot more conservative. You didn't see coaches going for 4th and 1 and 4th and 2 like they do nowadays. And now they're willing to risk a missed field goal from, of course, in the NFL, you go back to the point of the kick instead of the line of scrimmage. So there is a risk factor involved. The one thing I believe there's 2 things that I attribute to the success of kickers these days. One is the long snapper. Back when I played, the long snapper position didn't exist. Actually, Bill Parcells sort of by accident invented it because in 1988 our center was Bart Oates, but the centers used to be the long snappers as well. So they had tape on their hands or gloves or whatever. It was a long drive. They were all sweaty and frustrated and beat up, and they were not happy that we had to kick a field goal instead of scoring a touchdown. So sometimes the snaps were not the best snaps. So one game we're playing the 49ers and Bart Oates rolls the snap, through, way past our holder. He went all the way to midfield, and Parcells said, okay, I'm going to bring Joe Fields, who used to be a center for the New York Jets for a long time. He had just been released. So he said, oh, the only thing you're going to do is snap for Fields. Well, I didn't miss a kick the rest of the year. So after that, he got Frank Winters, who later became the starting center and best friend of Brett Favre with the Packers. The Aussie, whose son actually became also a snapper for the Giants. And the other teams started copying that. So the long snapper makes a huge difference. The other thing is now you have really good surfaces. We used to play on the old artificial turf, which was like concrete, like a 1-inch carpet over concrete. And the fields, I don't know, come November, they were basically painted dirt. I mean, you went to RFK and it was dirt painted green, and the surfaces are really, really smooth. And the other thing that you did mention is the training and the nutritionists and everything that is far more detailed or advanced. Everybody has their own trainers, and the routines are so the guys. It's just like every position. Back then when we won the Super Bowl in 21, we had the heaviest offensive line in the NFL, and I think we averaged like 270. Right now, that wouldn't cut it. I mean, you saw the Eagles; they averaged 330 across the line, the offensive line. So yeah, there has been an evolution. I don't know that they're better athletes, but they're much better trained and much better fed than we were.
Hey, I wanted to ask you because one of the things we wanted to talk about, and I know you wanted to kind of talk about, you felt the pain of the Ohio State loss like the rest of us, right?
Still do.
Still do. I know you wanted to touch on that, your thoughts on that game, and what you're seeing from Sark, what you like and from this Texas program.
Oh, I liked a lot of things. I mean, I was frustrated. I was at the game. I was way up in the nosebleeds. But I was there with my son, and I got to see. Obviously, there were like 3 calls that I thought really, really hurt Texas. 2 of them actually you see in the broadcast, Fowler and Hurstreet. Actually, one was a hold on Wingo. I think it was. I believe it was in the third quarter on a third down, which he would have scored a touchdown in that particular pass because there was no safety back, to cover him. And then, of course, the holding on Simmons. I mean, it was like he just got tackled. I mean, the place. But also the first touchdown that Ohio State scored, I think Norton just got hell. I mean, he went into the backfield. I don't know if he would have made the tackle or not, but he beat the center easily, and the center grabbing it, actually turning it around. But anyway, and then of course the 1 and goal. That's when I send you my frustrations. I've never understood why they put defensive linemen to block on goal line. I mean, they had I think Lollet as a tight end when we had the 3 guys. DJ Campbell was not at guard. It was Hudson who was playing guard, right guard. I think he could have been there, or Neto, Mazulo, or Gooseby. And I just that play, of course, everybody thinks about it. Why do I think of Sark? I think Sark is doing a tremendous job. I mean, I love what the way he has transformed the program, the culture. He talks a lot about culture. Actually, there is if you Google Sark and culture, there is this I don't know definition that he gives of, and it's really, really, really good. I mean, the recruiting. I mean, I'm very excited about the program. I like everything that is happening, and but I thought we'll let one go. I thought, I mean, and it is funny because I didn't know about the on Texas football side, and I kind of had lost touch with my good friend Rod Bavers. When the radio station went out, so I texted him and where are you now? He never replied to me, so I don't know if he's mad at me or what. But I said, where can I find you? Because I miss the Rod rants, that what he used to have on the radio. And so I was kind of like Googling the Ohio State podcast, and Jerry was a guest. And I said, who is this guy, Jerry? And so I looked him up and I started following him. And then I saw on Twitter or X or whatever, and I saw that they had this on Texas football, and I started watching your shows, the coffee and football. And I got my coffee here, dude.
Good stuff.
And I don't always watch live, but I like to work out in the middle of the afternoon. And so when I'm doing I'm on the stationary bike for about, I don't know, 40, 45 minutes, I put you guys on just to catch on. I'm still waiting to see who's going to be a running backs coach.
Exactly. We are too.
I mean, I remember when Stan Drayton left, they got the short shorts. I said, yeah, that's really good. But now, the Shard goes to Detroit, which, by the way, they still haven't listed it in their website as a running backs coach. And I understand him going to the NFL. Perhaps he has aspiration of being a coordinator. I don't think he's getting paid more than what he was being paid at Texas. I don't think it's money. I think it's Jahmyr Gibbs and the opportunity to perhaps further his career later as a coordinator or as a run game coordinator or something. But then I Googled Stan Drayton and I saw that he had just been hired by, Penn State. So I thought,
Yeah. Hey, Raul, I'm going to say this has been a gem. We got to have you back. We absolutely have to have you back because you clearly are a fan. You're not just a bystander. You are into it. You're naming Trevor Gooseby and Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell. You know them all. Thank you so much today. And we appreciate you. You were absolutely awesome, dude. And best of luck to you. We got to go get some food next time I'm in Austin. I'll treat you to some coffee or some food.
Sounds good.
All righty, man. You take care. Hook 'em, bro. Appreciate you. All right, take care. Especialidades del Deporte, Raul Alegre, Longhorn legend, lifetime Longhorn. What a great story he has. And just you could see and sense the pride he has in the Longhorns 40 years hence. He's part of the community. And he was talking about the holding calls against.
Well, look, my main takeaway from that interview was whoever from the University of Texas is listening out there, we got to get him better seats for the playoff games next year. Okay. He said, when he said nosebleeds, I was like, that's BS. This is BS. He's got to have better seats next year.
I love it. He's a good guy.
I'll make that my mission.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff, man. Blake, you are muted.
Oh, man. I thought I was going to get away with it today, but I guess not. Sorry, my bad there. At least I didn't keep going like Jerry. I didn't notice right away. But I need to let everyone know about Public Rec because nobody's got time for stiff, uncomfortable clothes anymore. It's February. It's getting cold outside again, and you deserve to be comfortable in whatever you're wearing, no matter what you're doing. That's where Public Rec comes in. Their pants are a game changer. They're designed to be as comfy as your favorite sweats, but way more stylish. We're talking super soft fabric, no stiff seams, and enough stretch to keep up with whatever your day may throw at you. But Public Rec isn't just about pants. They have so many great style options. Whether you're working all day in the office, running errands, or just grabbing a drink, who doesn't want to look sharp without sacrificing comfort? And I said it yesterday, but I love their hoodies. They fit great. They feel great. They're incredibly comfortable, and they are warm. I love all of my Public Rec gear, but the hoodies are hands down my favorite product. And they have a huge selection of high quality, everyday premium styles. You can revamp your entire wardrobe with their perfect fitting polos, shorts, hoodies, pants, and more. So this February, treat yourself right because comfort is always in season. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference. And for a limited time, you can get 20% off at Public Rec by using code ONTexas at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com, use promo code ONTexas, and you'll be all set. And when they ask how you found them, be sure to mention On Texas Football. It really helps us out. We would appreciate it. Find your perfect fit. Never compromise on comfort again because it's Public Rec, where comfort rules.
Blake missed the most important part of the read. Kim Mulkey, they come in purple or gold or brown for your team's fourth quarter woes. Because y'all get it all over the court Sunday in the fourth quarter.
Hey, I've got to say this. You guys are that if you're just now joining us, we had Raul Alegre, former Texas kicker, two-time Super Bowl champ, on with us just a few minutes ago. He spent about 15, 20 minutes with us. Tremendous interview. If you guys get a chance, please rewind, go back and listen to that. We also need to reset the stage based on what's happened today and what we need to communicate to everybody. Texas still on the look for on the search for a running backs coach. As of right now, we believe Norvell McKenzie, is a possibility. He's the running backs coach at Georgia Tech currently, but a guy that has recruited the state of Texas, recruited for Vanderbilt, Cedric Alexander out of LBJ High School, their leading rusher a year ago, as well as the state of Georgia and Atlanta in particular, and parts of Florida. He is a name to watch for, as well as E.J. Bartell, running backs coach out of Nebraska. Those are the two names we know are in it. Some other guys that we're keeping an eye on but don't believe are really in it at this point. Rashad Samples out of Oregon, Keenan Hall out of Baylor. There could be others that are trying, or there are others trying to get in on the job, but we know this to be the case. I think that Sark's looking for somebody that has some staying power and some loyalty, as well as just wants to grow with the team. That's kind of indicative of who Sark has hired, whether it's Mark Orfe this past year or this past offseason, or some other guys like Chris Jackson and Tashard Choice. Come and stay a little while, and we don't want guys that are necessarily job hoppers looking for the next job every single year. I think that's what Sark is potentially looking for. All right. Also, if you're unaware, Jerry is under the weather, so he's sounding like a frog much of the day.
That's the best thing.
I was a little concerned when we started this morning that you might be taking a little too much NyQuil because you're a little salty. But anyways, that's what's going on right now for the University of Texas in the quarterbacks or in the coaching search at running back. Also, we discussed the fact that Texas's pro day apparently will be March 26th, will be the date. So circle that on your calendar when probably 15 to 17 Longhorns will be working out for. It's got to be all 32 teams have to be coming.
They were there. All 32 were there last year, Bobby.
Yeah.
And look, that pro day, that's going to be a big one for Quinn.
Yep. Let's see if he even throws, though, Jerry. You don't know with these guys anymore.
That's true.
He threw last year. I mean, but my point is there will be 15 to 17 guys. Everybody, it will be a who's who of NFL GMs and NFL head coaches in Austin on March 26th. Just book that.
We got a super chat here from Jack. Once again, thank you as always, Jack. He says, on a future show, can you recap how many former players are in the NFL and how many were non-drafted?
Man, that's good. That, and that's something that Mac did a lot of. And then he had a lot of guys that Marcus Wilkins was never drafted, but played several years in the NFL as a special teams guy. A lot of guys like that for Texas. And I think that in the 2010s, Texas had more often than not guys that went undrafted because they were overlooked a little bit because Texas wasn't very good. And teams were like, maybe he's okay. And they just put him down as an undrafted free agent instead of being a 5th or 6th round pick. So we'll see what happens. But yes, Jack, we can look that up and try to get that to you. We'll answer that tomorrow, actually. Why don't we do that, Jerry?
Yeah. Brendan Bowersox has a question.
Yeah.
Is a good comp for Sharma, Dexter Lawrence. I've always said Sharma, and it's not because he went to Texas, kind of remind him, and I'm not going to say he's going to be this good, but it reminds me of Sean Rogers from a size quickness standpoint and the ability to play over the ball in the 3. What's interesting about Dexter Lawrence, because we always talk about the guys that, hey, we hit on this guy. We knew he was going to be good. I went to see Dexter Lawrence when I was doing this nationally in high school, and I missed on Dexter Lawrence in high school. I didn't think he was going to be that good. He did not. The night I was there, this is why some of this stuff sometimes can lead you down the wrong path. When I went to see Dexter Lawrence in high school, he didn't play with a motor. He didn't play with aggression, and he didn't pursue the football. And I walked away from that saying, I love everything about that guy, but I don't know if he's got it internally to be a great player. You knew he had the talent. So that's where this job sometimes will get you. Maybe I saw him on the worst night. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was under the weather like me today. I don't know. But when I went to see Dexter Lawrence in high school, he, outside of the raw tools, he showed nothing that made him the player he is today. So that's an interesting one. Just a kind of side note on Dexter Lawrence. But Josiah Sharma's, to me, is Sean Rogers-esque if he maximizes his talent. I'm not saying he's going to go on and be an all-pro, but that's talent-wise. It kind of reminds me of him.
Laguna Beach Longhorn says, Team OTF, looking ahead to the April portal, how confident are you that we can add a talented speed receiver, a capable, experienced tight end, and a productive starter-level defensive tackle?
I'm pretty confident on wide receiver, but in part because there's so many out there. There's going to be guys out there, and I feel pretty good about that. Tight end is a little bit different because Texas has a pretty good young tight end in Jordan Washington. They really do, guys. They've got some good young guys coming in with them. I think they need a veteran. Spencer Shannon is that veteran right now on the Texas roster in many ways, but he is more of an inline guy specifically. I think tight end may be more difficult to find someone that can elevate the room. I'll put it that way. Defensive tackle, Texas is going to go all in for a defensive tackle if one comes available they think can help. So I would put it around 75% to 80% on wide receiver, and tight end and defensive lineman, I'd put it 50-50. Those would be my odds. Hey, I looked real quick, Jack, going back to guys in the NFL that are undrafted free agents. Texas currently has 5 on current rosters. Puna Ford, tremendous. All these guys were better players than they were prospects, by the way. Puna Ford, L.J. Humphrey, Little Jordan Humphrey, Malcolm Roach, Justin Tucker, P.J. Locke, Cameron Dicker. So 6, actually. 6 undrafted. P.J. Locke, better player than prospect. Malcolm Roach, better player than prospect. L.J. Humphrey, better player than prospect. Puna Ford, a 5'11" defensive tackle, better player than prospect.
I got to mix in a couple stories there. When I went to see Puna, I was doing this nationally. When I went to see Puna in high school, to this day, still has the longest arms and biggest hands of any 5'11" person I've ever seen in my life. I literally thought he could be sitting in the desk and open the door to the classroom, and I didn't even have to open the door. Like, his arms were so long, it was ridiculous. And then who can forget Malcolm Roach playing middle linebacker against Maryland? All right, I'm done.
I think
only a defensive tackle in the NFL.
I think when Malcolm Roach played linebacker against Maryland and they ran that jet sweep 100 times, that may be when they lost faith in Todd Orlando as a defensive coordinator. That game in particular, because it's right out of the gate in that season. Yep.
Going back to the question earlier about how y'all feel confident in certain positions, Texas boy Teddy adds, what about getting an experienced offensive lineman out of the portal?
Hasn't been something that Texas or Kyle Flood has done. He tends to like his guys. Could they do something after spring ball if, say, a Brandon Baker or a Andre Kojo or Jaden Chapman aren't ready at right tackle? Maybe. I don't think they're going to do anything at center or either guard, but I think they could use a tackle perhaps as a swing year, if that makes sense, to get them to the next season. I feel good about Gooseby at this point, but we'll see. Man, if Gooseby goes down with injury, then I think you have to go to the portal for an offensive tackle. But I don't know. We'll see what Texas does this spring as far as, I mean, are they even going to have contact in spring practice?
Other than thuds. Yeah.
Yeah. I really wonder what Sark's got planned. He's kind of got us all waiting to see what he decides to do. It may be a complete NFL rework where it's literally just, shorts and shoulder pads and helmets all spring. I don't know yet. We're waiting for him to tell us.
And we got time for just a couple more here. And Bobby, maybe you'll be able to answer this one. I've seen this one asked a little bit off and on throughout the past week or so. Horn 7, how's progress on the indoor facility coming? Do you know anything on that?
Not beyond what is publicly available information at this point. They are still shooting for next year for that thing to be open. We'll see what happens. I think that the great thing about that, they've torn down the School of Social Work and are moving it. Brennan School, I forgot about him. Sorry, guys. I just looked real quickly. And what I mean by that is this indoor/outdoor kind of practice facility will be great for the University of Texas because it's also one of the things that's really difficult right now. And Jerry and I know this because we actually go to practices. Texas has to be bused to practices that are up at, and that takes an extra 15 minutes to get everybody on the bus, get up to practice. They're going to be able to just walk to practice now. I think that as much as the new facility itself will be very, very helpful for this Texas football team. It's 15 minutes out of your day. You don't need to spend getting on a bus, getting off a bus, etc. So I think it'll be ready in 2026. We'll see what's able to happen. It'll depend on construction, etc.
You got a super chat here that just came in from Aaron. Thank you, Aaron, or thank you from Jerry to you, Aaron. He says Jerry's NyQuil.
Makes for a good sleep, I'll tell you that. Not a good waking up, but a good sleep.
You woke up a little cranky this morning, a little ornery, I think.
Yeah, it's high school basketball playoff time. I'm in game mode right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's ready.
Yeah.
And then TJ Johnson says, how do you get your team ready physically with limited contact in practice? How do you simulate it?
Man, good luck. I mean, there's nothing that simulates getting popped. And coaches will tell you that.
Yeah.
The question I have is it's one thing when you're a pro football player and you have 50 games of college experience and maybe 2 or 3 years of NFL experience, and you've played all these games, right? These high school guys that are coming into college, they haven't experienced that. And so I'm intrigued by how Jerry and Blake Sark's going to simulate that for these younger guys that haven't really been battle tested, right? I am very, very intrigued by that myself. I don't have the answer. We'll wait and see what Sark decides to do. Maybe they go, full pads, 3 or 4 scrimmage. I don't know. we'll see what comes to pass.
And our last one for today, guys, is a super chat from Edgar. Thank you, Edgar. He says, good morning, OTF team. Felt like some players were inadvertently underutilized last year, such as Bolden. How does the staff identify those dogs and get the ball into the playmakers' hands maybe a tad more?
The issue with Silas Bolden is he was behind DeAndre Moore. And DeAndre Moore had a sneaky good season last year, guys. He really did. Now, could there have been times you get Silas Bolden in the game more? Yes, but who do you take out? If you rely on DeAndre Moore to kind of be a blocker at times for you, Silas Bolden was many things. He's not necessarily a good blocker, right? And so he makes you a little bit one-dimensional. I do feel like he was underutilized. I think Sark, in retrospect, probably thinks he might be a little underutilized. There you see DeAndre Moore's numbers, by the way. I feel like Sark could have used him more and started using him a little bit more as the season went on. But when you put Silas Bolden and Jaden Blue and Trey Weiser in the game simultaneously, you're really small as a football team. And I'm not saying that negatively. You're a major college football team and you got 3 smaller dudes on the field. That's not ideal. It makes it hard on a coach to figure out how you're going to do it. So, anyways.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. I want to thank Mando and Public Rec for sponsoring today's show. And thank you for Raul for joining us. That was a treat for sure. Thank you, Jerry, for setting that up. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live, post content, whatever it may be. And Bobby, what can people expect later today?
Well, Jeff and CJ have articles coming up on Texas Football this morning. Also, Jerry and CJ are getting after it on the recruiting breakdown, talking a little Texas football. And then tonight we have the live stream, Rod Babers and Jeff Howe, as well as Aaron Hogan, back to talk a little Texas football as well. We'll be monitoring the running back coaching search. We broke the news yesterday about Norval McKenzie. If we have any other news or notes coming in on that, we'll be sure to pass them along to you on TexasFootball.com.
I'll play with Hills tomorrow. And for you guys still in the year, special guest Thursday, I think you guys will really like.
There you go. All right. And if you haven't become a member of OnTexasFootball.com, you can very, very easily. Right now, use promo code OTFOG. Get a full year for just $49.95. That's $10 off the annual subscription price. Again, OTFOG at OnTexasFootball.com. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em.